May 2026 does not arrive with noise, nor does it announce itself in a way that immediately captures your attention. At first glance, it may seem like just another month, another page on the calendar, quietly turning. But beneath that calm surface, something begins to move, something subtle yet powerful, something that changes the way financial energy flows in ways that most people do not immediately notice. There are moments in life when effort alone does not explain what happens next. You may have experienced times when you worked hard, remained patient, and yet nothing seemed to shift. And then, without warning, you saw someone else receive an opportunity, gain financial momentum, or suddenly step into a phase of abundance. In those moments, a quiet question often arises: why them and not me? This is where understanding becomes important, because money is not only the result of effort, it is also the result of timing, of alignment, of a deeper rhythm that moves quietly beneath our everyday actions. And in May 2026, that rhythm begins to change. But here is what most people do not realize. This change does not affect everyone at the same moment. Some will feel it early, almost immediately, as if doors begin to open without warning. Others will wait, feeling as though nothing has changed at all. And for some, the shift will come later in a way that feels sudden only because it was not seen before. This difference in timing is what creates the illusion of luck. It makes it seem as though certain people are chosen, as though opportunity favors some over others. But in truth, what is happening is something far more balanced. It is the natural movement of energy aligning with those who are ready to receive it. There is a moment, often quiet and easily overlooked, when money stops moving away from you and begins to move toward you instead. It is not dramatic. It does not arrive with certainty. But once it begins, everything starts to feel different. Opportunities feel closer. Effort feels lighter. And the path ahead becomes clearer, even if only slightly at first. In May 2026, this moment arrives. But it does not arrive for everyone at once. Some zodiac signs will feel this shift in the very beginning of the month. For them, the change may feel sudden, almost surprising. Others will move through the early days without noticing anything unusual, wondering if they have been left behind. And still others will only begin to feel the shift later, when the energy finally reaches them. This is why understanding the flow of money energy is so important. Because without that understanding, it is easy to fall into comparison, to question your own path, to believe that something is missing, or that you have somehow been overlooked. But nothing is random. Every movement, every delay, every moment of progress follows a pattern. And once you begin to see that pattern, you begin to understand that your timing is not wrong. It is simply your own. To truly understand why May 2026 becomes such a significant turning point, you must first look deeper into how money energy actually moves, how it chooses its moment, and why it flows towards some before it reaches others. Because once you understand that, everything that follows will begin to make sense in a way that removes doubt and replaces it with clarity. To understand why May 2026 becomes such a powerful turning point, you must first look beyond the surface of money itself and begin to see it for what it truly is. Money is not only something you earn, save, or spend. It is a form of energy, a flow that moves in and out of your life, depending on how aligned you are with its rhythm. And just like any form of energy, it follows patterns, cycles, and timing that cannot always be seen, but can always be felt. There are people who spend their lives chasing money, believing that if they work harder, move faster, or push more aggressively, they will eventually reach a point where everything changes. And sometimes they do see results, but often those results do not last. The flow comes in quickly, but it also leaves just as quickly. This is because effort alone does not control the flow of money. Alignment does. Then there are others who seem to attract opportunities without force. At the right moment, the right door opens. At the right time, a connection appears. At the exact point when they are ready, something shifts in a way that feels almost natural. This is not luck, it is timing. It is the moment when their energy aligns with the movement of money. May 2026 is one of those rare periods when the flow of financial energy begins to shift on a larger scale. It is what can be called a trigger month, a point in time when the movement of money becomes more active, more responsive, and more sensitive to alignment. It is not that money suddenly appears out of nowhere. It is that the conditions for it to move become stronger. The energy of this period carries the influence of activation and transition. It encourages movement, decision, and change. It does not support hesitation or confusion. Instead, it amplifies what is already present within you. If your energy is stable and aligned, the flow of money begins to move toward you. If your energy is scattered or uncertain, the flow may pass you by, not because it is unfair, but because it has nothing stable to connect to. This is why timing matters so deeply, because when the flow begins, it does not wait. It moves toward those who are already prepared, those who have quietly built the foundation that allows them to receive it. And for those who are not yet aligned, the flow does not disappear. It simply arrives later, when the conditions are ready. This can often feel confusing. You may look at someone else and wonder why their situation changes so quickly, while yours remains the same. You may feel as though your effort is being ignored, as though something is missing. But the truth is, nothing is missing. You are simply in a different part of the cycle. There is a simple example that reflects this. Imagine two people planting seeds. One plants early, prepares the soil, and waits patiently. The other plants later, or perhaps rushes the process. When the season changes and growth begins, the first person sees results sooner. The second person may feel delayed, but both will eventually see growth because the process follows its own timing. This is how money energy behaves. It responds to preparation, to readiness, to alignment. And in May 2026, the shift that activates this flow begins to take effect. Some zodiac signs have already been preparing without realizing it. Their energy has been aligning through past actions, decisions, and patterns. When May arrives, they are ready, and the flow responds to them quickly. Others are still adjusting, still moving into alignment. Their moment will come, but it will not be at the very beginning. Understanding this removes the sense of comparison. It allows you to see that your timing is not wrong. It is simply unfolding in its own way. And once you accept that, you can begin to recognize where you are within the flow, rather than questioning why you are not somewhere else. Because as May begins, the first signs start to feel something different. Not all at once, and not in a way that is obvious to everyone, but enough to create a shift. A door opens. An opportunity appears. A movement begins. And for those who are ready, this is the moment when the flow turns toward them. In the early days of May, during the first and second weeks, there are certain zodiac signs that begin to feel the shift almost immediately. For them, the change does not arrive as a slow realization, but as a quiet opening. A moment where something begins to move in a way that feels different from before. It may come through an unexpected opportunity, a conversation that leads somewhere meaningful, or a financial situation that suddenly becomes more favorable. And while it may seem surprising, even sudden from the outside, this moment is not random. These are the early attractors, the signs whose energy has already been aligning long before May arrived. Without fully realizing it, they have been preparing. Their past actions, their decisions, and even their patience have created foundation that allows them to receive this shift the moment it begins. And because of this, when the flow of money energy starts to move, it finds them first. For these individuals, the experience can feel exciting, even a little unexpected. They may wonder why things are suddenly working in their favor, why opportunity seemed to appear without effort, why situations that once felt difficult now begin to resolve themselves. There is a sense of movement, a feeling that something has finally started to change. But beneath that excitement, there is a deeper truth. What they are experiencing is not luck. It is readiness. Imagine a door that has been closed for a long time. Behind that door, everything is already in place, waiting for the right moment to open. When the time comes, the door does not open slowly. It opens completely. And to those who are watching from the outside, it may seem as though it happened suddenly. Tala. But in reality, everything behind that door was already prepared. This is how financial energy behaves for the early attractors in May 2026. The opportunities they receive, the movement they experience, the flow that begins to come toward them is simply the result of something that has been building over time. However, there is an important detail that must not be overlooked, because when movement begins early, it can create a sense of confidence that, if not balanced, may turn into overconfidence. The feeling that everything is finally working can lead to decisions that are made too quickly without the same awareness that created the alignment in the first place. This is where many people make a subtle mistake. They believe that because the flow has begun, it will continue no matter what. They begin to move faster, to take risks, to assume that the momentum will carry them forward without effort. But the truth is, the flow responds to alignment, not to excitement. For the early attractors, the key is not to rush, but to remain grounded, to understand that what is happening now is the result of preparation, and that it must be maintained with the same awareness that created it. Because the moment you move out of alignment, the flow begins to shift again. At the same time, it is important to recognize that not everyone will feel this shift at the same time. While some are already experiencing movement, others may still feel as though nothing has changed. And this difference in timing can create confusion, even doubt, for those who are still waiting. But this is where understanding becomes essential. Because just because the flow has reached some first does not mean it will not reach others. It simply means that their moment is coming in a different phase. And as the early days of May pass, the energy continues to move, extending beyond the first group, gradually reaching those who are still in the process of aligning. For them, the experiences will be different, slower at first, but no less meaningful, because what arrives later often carries a different kind of strength, one that is built not on sudden movement, but on steady alignment. And as the month continues, this second group begins to feel their own shift in a way that reveals something important about timing, patience, and the true nature of financial flow. As the month moves into its middle phase, around the second and third weeks of May, there is a noticeable shift in how the energy begins to spread. Those who did not feel anything in the early days may now start to sense a subtle change. It is not as immediate or as obvious as what the early attractors experienced, but it is present. And for many, this phase can feel confusing. You may find yourself looking around, noticing that others have already begun to move forward, already receiving opportunities, already stepping into a flow that you have not yet fully felt. And in that moment, it is easy for doubt to appear. You may begin to question whether you have missed your chance, whether you were not prepared enough, whether something is lacking in your path. But this is where understanding becomes essential. Because the truth is, you are not late. You are simply moving within a different rhythm. For this group, the shift does not come suddenly. It comes gradually, building over time, almost quietly at first. Instead of one clear opportunity, there may be small changes that begin to appear. A conversation that leads somewhere, a possibility that slowly develops, a situation that begins to improve step by step. These changes may not feel significant at first, but they are part of a larger movement that is beginning to form. This phase is often accompanied by emotional tension. There is a part of you that wants to move faster, to catch up, to reach the same level as those who experienced early movement. You may feel the urge to act quickly, to make decisions before you feel fully ready, to push yourself forward in an attempt to match the pace of others. But this is where patience becomes important, because what is happening in this phase is not delay, but alignment catching up. The energy that began earlier in the month is now extending towards you, but it needs time to connect fully. And if you rush this process, if you try to force movement before it is stable, you may disrupt the very alignment that is forming. There is a quiet story that reflects this experience. Imagine someone walking along a path, watching others run ahead. At first, they feel left behind, wondering why they are moving so slowly. But as they continue, they begin to notice something different. The path they are walking becomes clearer, more stable, less chaotic, while others who ran ahead begin to encounter obstacles. This person finds a steady route forward. This is the nature of delayed alignment. For those in this group, the opportunities that appear may not be as sudden, but they are often more stable. They develop over time, allowing you to understand them, to prepare for them, and to build something that lasts. And while it may not feel exciting in the moment, it carries a strength that sudden movement often lacks. The key during this phase is to remain steady. Do not compare your progress to others. Do not assume that slower means worse. Instead, focus on the small signs of movement that are beginning to appear in your own life. Recognize that these are not random events, but parts of a larger pattern that is unfolding in its own time. Because as this alignment continues to build, something important begins to happen. The small changes start to connect. The slow movement begins to gain momentum, and what once felt uncertain begins to take on a clearer direction. And as the month approaches its final phase, this group begins to experience something that is often overlooked. While their start may have been slower, the stability they develop becomes stronger. Their foundation becomes more solid, and when their moment fully arrives, it carries a sense of balance that allows it to last. Because sometimes what comes later is not weaker, it is simply more prepared. And as the energy continues to move through May, there is still one final phase, one last group that has not yet felt the shift. For them, the experience will be different again, arriving in a way that reveals one final truth about timing and the nature of financial flow. As May moves into its final weeks, from the 3rd into the 4th, there is one last group that begins to feel the shift. And their experience is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. For them, the early part of the month may have felt completely unchanged. While others were already seeing movement, while opportunities seemed to be appearing elsewhere, they may have felt as though nothing was happening at all. It may have even seemed as though the month was passing them by without any sign of progress. This is the final activation window. For these individuals, the energy does not build slowly. It does not arrive in small, gradual steps. Instead, it appears suddenly, almost unexpectedly, as if something has been waiting until the very last moment to reveal itself. And because of this delay, when the shift finally comes, it can feel more intense, more noticeable, and more transformative. There is often a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes unmistakable, when everything begins to change at once. A new opportunity appears where there was none before. A situation that felt blocked suddenly opens. A decision becomes clear in a way that it had not been before, and in that moment, the feeling is not excitement alone, but relief. A deep realization that the waiting was not wasted. This phase carries an important lesson. Because while the delay may have felt uncomfortable, even discouraging at times, it served a purpose. It created pressure. It forced reflection. It required patience. And in doing so, it prepared you in a way that could not have happened if the shift had come earlier. There is a quiet truth within this experience. Some energy does not activate until it has been pushed. Some alignment only forms after a period of stillness, of waiting, of uncertainty. And for this group, that process has now reached its turning point. It is important to understand that arriving later does not mean receiving less. In many cases, the opportunities that appear during this final phase carry a different kind of clarity. Because they come after a period of reflection, they are often more aligned with your true direction. They are not rushed. They are not driven by impulse. They are the result of something that has fully formed beneath the surface. There is also a contrast that becomes clear when looking at all three phases together. The early attractors experience movement quickly, but must remain grounded to sustain it. The middle group builds slowly, creating stability through patience. And this final group, though delayed, often experiences a moment of clarity that allows them to move forward with purpose. Each phase is different, but none is better than the others. This is one of the most important truths to understand, because when you compare timing, it is easy to believe that earlier is better. But in reality, each timing carries its own strength. Early movement brings momentum. Gradual alignment brings stability. Late activation brings clarity. What matters is not when the flow begins, but how you respond when it arrives. As May comes to its final days, the full picture begins to reveal itself. Every zodiac sign, every individual, experiences a moment when the energy begins to move toward them. The difference lies only in when that moment occurs. But there is something else that must be understood, because even when the flow arrives, even when the opportunity appears, not everyone is able to receive it fully. Some hesitate, some act too quickly, some move out of alignment at the very moment when it matters most. And this is where the final challenge begins to appear. Because attracting money is one thing. Allowing it to stay, allowing it to grow, requires something more. And if this next part is not understood, even the strongest opportunity can quietly pass without creating lasting change. Even when the flow of money begins to move toward you, even when opportunities appear and doors begin to open, there is something that can quietly prevent that movement from turning into real, lasting gain. It is not always obvious. It does not always come from outside circumstances. In many cases, it comes from within, from the way you respond in the very moment when alignment begins. This is the warning that many people overlook, because attracting money is only the first step. What truly matters is whether you are able to receive it, hold it, and allow it to grow. And this requires something deeper than excitement or quick action. It requires stability. One of the most common mistakes during this phase is fear. When an opportunity appears, especially after a period of waiting, it can feel overwhelming. You may begin to question it, to doubt whether it is real, to hesitate at the exact moment when action is needed. This hesitation can cause the opportunity to pass, not because it was not meant for you, but because the moment was not fully accepted. On the other hand, there is the opposite reaction. Instead of hesitation, there is urgency. The feeling that you must act quickly, that you must take advantage of the situation before it disappears. This can lead to rush decisions, choices made without full awareness, actions driven by emotion rather than clarity. And while this may create short-term movement, it often disrupts the alignment that allowed the opportunity to appear in the first place. There is also the subtle trap of comparison. As you observe others moving forward, receiving opportunities, achieving visible results, it becomes easy to measure your own progress against theirs. You may feel that you are behind even when your own path is unfolding exactly as it should. This comparison creates tension, and tension creates imbalance. And when your energy becomes unsettled, the flow of money begins to shift away. Spiritually, money does not move toward chaos. It moves toward stability. It responds to clarity, to calmness, to a sense of grounded awareness. When your energy becomes scattered, when your decisions are driven by fear or urgency, the connection weakens. There is a simple story that reflects this truth. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a river, waiting for the right moment to step forward. When the water is calm, they can see clearly, they can move with confidence, and they can cross safely. But if they rush when the water is unstable, or hesitate when the moment is right, they lose their chance to move forward smoothly. This is how financial energy behaves. The opportunity itself is not enough. The timing alone is not enough. What matters is how you meet that moment. For those who understand this, the path becomes clear. When the flow begins, they do not rush and they do not hesitate. They remain steady, they observe, they act with awareness, and they allow the movement to continue without forcing it. The advice during this phase is simple but powerful. Stay calm. Do not chase. Do not panic. Recognize the moment when it arrives and respond with clarity rather than emotion, because attraction requires stability. And once you understand this, something important begins to reveal itself. You begin to see that the flow of money is not something you need to chase or control. It is something you align with. It is something you allow. And when you reach this understanding, you no longer ask why others receive first or why your timing is different. Instead, you begin to see the pattern as a whole, recognizing that every moment, every phase, every shift serves a purpose. And from this place of understanding, something deeper emerges. Not just the ability to attract money, but the ability to sustain it, to grow it, and to move forward with a sense of confidence that is no longer dependent on comparison or doubt. Because once alignment is understood, the entire journey begins to make sense in a way that changes how you see not only this moment, but everything that comes after it. As the understanding of this journey deepens, something begins to shift not only in how you see May 2026, but in how you see your entire relationship with money. The question that once felt so important, who attracts money first, begins to lose its urgency, because what becomes clear is that every zodiac sign, every individual has their own moment. And that moment is not determined by competition, but by alignment. At first, it is natural to compare, to look at others and wonder why their timing seems earlier, why their opportunities appear sooner, why their path seems to move faster. But as you begin to see the full pattern, you realize that timing is not about being ahead or behind. It is about being ready. Each phase in May reveals this truth in a different way. The early attractors show how preparation leads to immediate movement. The middle group shows how patience creates stability. And the final group shows how pressure and waiting can lead to clarity. None of these paths are better than the others. They are simply different expressions of the same process. And once you understand this, something within you becomes calm. You no longer feel the need to rush. You no longer feel the pressure to match someone else's pace. Instead, you begin to focus on your own alignment, on your own readiness, on the quiet signals that tell you when your moment is arriving. This is the peak of understanding, because in this moment the question changes. It is longer, why not me? It becomes, what do I need to do to be ready when my moment comes? And this shift is powerful. It removes doubt. It replaces comparison with clarity. It allows you to move forward with a sense of purpose that is not influenced by what others are experiencing, but by what is unfolding within your own path. Emotionally, this brings relief, a release from the constant need to measure yourself against others, a sense of trust that your timing is not random, but intentional. And with that trust comes a different kind of confidence, one that is quiet but deeply rooted. Spiritually, this is the moment when you begin to align fully with the flow, not by forcing it, not by chasing it, but by understanding it. You begin to see that money is not something that needs to be pursued aggressively. It is something that moves toward you when the conditions are right. But even as this understanding settles in, there is something else that begins to appear. A sense that this moment is not the end of the story, but the beginning of something larger. Because May 2026 is only the first shift. What happens in this month sets the foundation for what follows. The choices you make, the way you respond to the flow, the level of awareness you maintain. All of these will influence what unfolds in the months ahead. There is a quiet transition approaching, one that extends beyond May into June and July, and this next phase carries even greater potential, not just for attracting money, but for expanding it, for building something that goes beyond temporary movement and becomes lasting growth. But this next step depends on something important. It depends on what you do now. If you recognize your moment when it arrives, if you respond with awareness, if you maintain stability instead of rushing or hesitating, then what begins in May will continue to grow. The flow will not stop. It will deepen, expand, and create opportunities that extend far beyond this single month. But if you miss this moment, if you allow doubt, comparison, or imbalance to guide your actions, then the opportunity may pass quietly, leaving you feeling as though nothing has changed. And this is the final question that remains. Are you aware enough to recognize your moment? Are you calm enough to respond without fear or urgency? Are you aligned enough to allow the flow to move through your life without resistance? Because the truth is simple but powerful. Money comes first to those who are ready, and it stays with those who are patient. And as May 2026 gently moves forward, the answer to that question will begin to reveal itself, not through what you hope for, but through what you choose to do when your moment arrives.